Welcome, all of you. Josh, can I start with you? You've been there from the beginning as one of the co-chairs. Tell us about what drove the formation of the Problem Solvers Caucus.
Well, actually, when Brian Fitzpatrick and I came into Congress the same year, we got elected together. A group of us sat down, including Brian, and we all said we need to find a way where we can avoid all the screaming and yelling and nastiness and the groups that just want to tweet every week and entertain instead of actually governing, getting things done. We got to find a place to get together. And so there had been a group called the Problem Solvers Caucus. We kind of rebooted it and said, let's make this a serious group with bylaws where people have to come together and meet every week and focus on areas where we can get to yes instead of all the areas where we disagree. That's how it happened. And we started getting together every week. And we said that when we get to 75% of us agreeing on something, we should take a position as a block of us. Imagine our voice if it was Democrats and Republicans coming together, and we knew the country. That's what they wanted, right? I think most people like us were just sick and tired of it all the partisanship and the divide. We wanted to put country first and figure it out. So we did it, and now we're actually at 58 members, 29 Democrats and 29 Republicans. More than 10% of the United States Congress. We work with a group in the Senate. We get together regularly with them in the United States Senate, and we've been behind some of the biggest legislation that's passed in the last few years.
Brian, can I bring you in here? In terms of the experience of working with other parties, I can see how the sort of general public might like it. What's been the reaction, in your experience, of your party activists? Has this gone down well or caused problems?
The reality of politics here in America, I'm sure elsewhere, is the fringe elements in each party, which is a small percent, on balance. I'd say it's 20%, roughly speaking, 20% of the Republican Party, 20% of the Democrat Party, maybe a little bit more. They're very noisy. They're the activists, they're the door knockers, they're the protesters, but they're not the majority of the people. Most Americans are in the center. They're either right of center or left of center. And they are much more appealed to the politics that Josh and I offer, much more than they are some of our fringe colleagues on the far right or the far left. But yet the far right and the far left are the ones that have a much easier time raising money. They're the ones that the media covers. They're the ones that make all the noise. So what our group does is we try to be that space in the center that drives right up the middle, that speaks to the common voter, not the pure ideologue, but someone that wants government to operate the same way their personal relationships do, the same way they manage their families, the same way they run their businesses. You don't allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good. You come to the center, you build consensus, you take 80% of something rather than 100% of nothing.
So let me ask Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler, you've been very brave in terms of being one of the small minority of Republican representatives who voted to impeach Donald Trump. And you've worked consistently across the aisle with Democrats. How has that approach been received by activists, your base in your district? Has that caused you many difficulties?
I think I see those as two totally different issues. One is working, within your own party or team to point out where things need to be better. I think Democrats need to do this, Republicans need to do that. The other one is whether or not, like with this group, where you're willing to work with Democrats on issues together. And I will say that, I've been ranked in Washington State, there are 12 members of Congress. I've been ranked the most effective legislator in Washington State federally. And I chalk it up to my willingness to work with anybody if it's a good idea, right? It doesn't matter what your party is. And I think that being able to say to an activist, I'm effective, I get things done for this district, for our region, is it's my bread and butter. And so whether you're an activist or even, a Democrat who won't ever vote for me, the ability to say I can get things signed into law that serve people here, that benefit people here, goes so much further than random rhetoric. That's been my experience anyway.
And in terms of, I know you're being challenged in the primary in August by a Trump supporter, and good luck, by the way. Are you confident that you can see that off on the basis that you have got a reputation as an effective person, someone who can get things done, someone who can solve problems?
Well, look, this isn't my first tough race. This is my 12th year in Congress, and I am habitually targeted, whether it's from the left or the right. My seat was the only Republican seat on the West Coast until recently. And so it's not my first rodeo. I think the way that you win is by showing you're effective. The way that you're effective to me is all based on relationships. My first law was signed into law by President Obama. And it was overturning his administration's rule with regards to jobs in timber in my area. And part of the reason I was able to get his administration to sign that into law is I worked with a Democrat, Kurt Schrader, another member of our group, who helped me bring, Democratic support to that bill. So that was in the minority that I got that first thing signed into law that protected jobs in our region. And when you go back to people, even if they don't agree with you on every vote they take, if they know you're a value add, I have found that it's not the anathema. The problem is when members of both parties are unwilling to do the hard work of you have to lay the groundwork. You have to explain to people what you're doing. You have to explain why you're doing certain things. And that takes effort. I think it's very lazy legislating to just, tape your button down and say, I'm never going to vote with that team just because it's the other team, rather than there's no shortage of problems, rather than find a problem to solve and someone to solve it with. Plus, like I said, I'm surrounded by Democrats in my region. There are no Republicans, on the west side of Washington state. So if I'm going to work with somebody on a regional issue, voters have deemed that it's going to be bipartisan.
And Josh, what's been your experience in terms of that sort of practical politics? Has that caused you any difficulties? You're a Democrat. Have you had problems with the left of the Democrats?
I've had my share. And I know Brian's had his. Listen, the party activists. It means I had a pretty nasty primary where they came at me pretty hard last time, and because they don't like that I work across the aisle. Despite the fact that we actually continue to deliver and get things done, fight for them, which is, what our job is to actually deliver. And the only way you're going to do it is actually by working with the other side. That's how our system works right now. It's to pass legislation, you're going to have to work together. But Brian just said is totally right. What I get most of the time is from folks, after they're done having people actually in my house protesting with signs, then when you're out and about, most people say to you, hey, I don't agree with you on everything, but I really appreciate that you're actually trying to work with the other side and actually get things done for us. Because we know it's not always popular with the party base or with your party leadership sometimes.
And Brian, in terms of communicating the benefits of working with the other party, how easy is that in kind of getting that message out?
It's not hard at all. The beauty of that message is that you don't have to worry about what group you're appearing before. You could be appearing before a group of Democrats, Republicans, Independents, regardless of what their issue is. Everybody should respect and understand, and most of them do, that if we believe that no one party has a monopoly on good ideas, no one party has a monopoly on good people, and that if we view diversity of thought as a strength to be harnessed and not a weakness to be criticized, then you embrace this form of politics. By the way, it's the only thing that's going to sustain our democracy. It's the only thing that's going to sustain democracies across the globe. Our Constitution was founded based on compromise. They came together and they figured it out. And that's exactly what we're doing here in 2022. We're trying to emulate that same spirit of compromise. That's what formed our democracy. That's the only thing that's going to save it.
And I just add to that, if you see everything, as Brian just spot on, if you see everything as a zero-sum game, right, that God forbid the other side actually help get a piece of legislation across the finish line, you see it as a loss for yourself, nothing will ever get done, right? And that's part of the problem that people in democracies around the world are frustrated with right now, right? That it's seen as a weakness to come together and come up with a pragmatic solution that moves the ball forward for people, right? To sit with your colleagues on the other side and actually build relationships and trust like you do in your personal lives, right? That's unfortunately by the press has built a whole machine that's built on clicks on social media and on fighting on news channels, right? And so it doesn't reward the actual substance of governing, right? And that's really a problem.
Watching American politics from the UK, the focus is exactly on what Josh, you've sort of set out and the big rows and so on. How optimistic are you that the politics in America can change and the sort of approach that you and Brian and Jamie are setting out is something that can become more common, that can prevail and fundamentally get things done for the American people?
I mean, I think it has to work, right? I think we have no choice. And if you actually look at what's like on a recent veterans bill that we're about to get done, on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which Brian and I helped craft and pass along with a group in the House, the Problem Solvers Caucus, and a group in the Senate. That was by us sitting down and working together. So during COVID, we came together and got things done. So the bottom line is we've made it work when we've had to. The problem is, as Brian I'm sure will also add, is you often get punished for doing so. And I think we're not out of the woods yet on this cycle of extremism from the wings. I just don't think that's going away. The key is keeping enough people who fight for common sense in the Congress, right? And keeping them actually in their seats and making sure they don't lose, and recruiting great people. I mean, like, listen, I get to work with Brian Fitzpatrick. I'm lucky, right? I've got an unbelievable partner who was an FBI agent. He's a great American, and he's just a decent guy, right? And you just don't want to lose the decent people who do the right thing.
And Brian, if I can, turn to you, with people like you and Jamie and Josh out there, making the case for a pragmatic approach to politics. Do you see that approach becoming adopted by more members of Congress?
I do. If you look at the history of the United States, I'm not sure if the history of UK politics is the same, but the pendulum has always swung back and forth. Always, we've had highs and lows in our history as far as level of cooperation. We've seen the peaks. Right after 9/11, our country was more unified than ever. And we've seen the really deep, distressing times, like right after January 6th. But we've seen everything in between, and we'll come back. We will, with good friends like we have in the UK, friends around the world that support our democracy, that understand the importance of America and our role in the world. And that's not lost on Josh and I either. As Josh pointed out, I mean, the very easy thing for, Josh to do would be vote straight party line. He could just, hide in the corner, be a representative for as long as he wanted to be. He steps out. He does what's right. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. And that inspires courage from people on the other side of the aisle. And people watch, what representatives like Josh do. They watch the board. How are they approaching this individual vote or this individual resolution? So that's important, but I think that, we've always been through tough times. We're in one now. We will get out of it. And we believe firmly that bipartisanship is the only way that we're going to get out of it. Because if we have this Hatfield versus McCoy brand of politics, there's going to be a lot of internal fighting, and the likes of China will take joy in that and supersede all of us if we're not careful.
Thank you very much to all three members of Congress for that contribution, and a clear message that working together, being prepared to put issues beyond party debate sometimes can make a difference, really achieve things, and solve the problems for the public. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet y'all.
Thank you so much.